You have a question, Harold?
No, not now.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's got to walk on that.
Going to say goodbye to Tyson.
Hello, Peter. Can you hear us okay?
Did you hear what happened?
And Brent,
Yeah.
you're good? Thumbs
Last
up?
week.
Okay, thank you very much.
I understand, so. But I still need to go.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Did
You're
you
still
go?
on.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right.
We are on mute, and
We have 1 minute.
so,
Well, you know, I could get in trouble if I started early.
Hey, Chad.
yes, Miss Christie.
Hello. So once you guys get rolling, I would try to keep the paper shuffling to a minimum. It sounds really high pitched tonight for some reason.
Okay, thank you.
Our paper?
Yeah, just clicking a pen and moving a paper. It's crazy how that comes across.
Good thing is,
Okay.
people can hear.
Would that change if we move the mics in place?
Maybe a little bit farther back, but on the other side, then the voices might not come over as clear, so we'll just be careful. We are looking at some other systems that'll work a little bit better, but this one has been working.
So it must be echoing off the box.
I think that's pretty classy. All right, and Councilor Officer, Councilor Reed, I do have some monitors available if you'd like.
Thank you.
Would you?
Yes, please. Oh, I can get it.
No, I got it.
Now we're late.
Oh, Jesus. Sorry.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I'm going to open the August 3rd City Council meeting. Is there any declaration of conflict of interest by any council member?
No, there is not.
Okay. And now on to the approval of minutes. Does anyone want to approve the minutes as written or any corrections?
Are you speaking just at the special meeting?
The special meeting.
Okay. Then I move we approve the special meeting of Wednesday, July 6th, 2022.
Any discussion?
Is that something I can vote on? Because I was only counselor for half of that meeting.
You were present during the whole meeting, so you can
Okay.
vote for it if you so desire.
I'll second.
You'll second. Any discussion?
Nope.
Moved in second, pardon me?
Oh, no, just saying, look good to me.
Okay. All those who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No nays? No? All right, now we'll go on to the regular city council meeting on Wednesday, July 6th. Are there any corrections? Motion?
I move that we accept the regular meeting Wednesday, July 6th.
A second.
Moved in second. Any discussion? Okay, then we will have everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved and accepted. Planning Commission report, everyone got one in their packet, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I was curious to, that 22-04P color petition application. There was two nay votes. I was just curious if there was, and it also said new evidence above that. Was there something that came up that kind of?
Yeah, there was some land use law that came up that we weren't quite too sure about, but some decisions were made on. And so we're actually going to be bringing that back for some reconsideration for the next meeting to make sure that we get everything straight. But it had to do with an easement and whether or not we could take an existing easement on a piece of property that was not, within that hearing and actually require people to pave it. That was one of the issues. And there was a few more that Peter may talk about in his update as well.
Okay.
So we're reconsidering getting some new information. Some of the new information we had is we found some old documents during the or in our planning commission files that were kind of misfiled that showed some intention also on that easement and that division when it happened with Ike Cutler many years ago. So just collecting some more information and then bringing it back.
So the petition was approved, but then.
It was not approved.
Oh, it was not approved?
No.
So because this could potentially be appealed to the city council, we probably shouldn't get into too many of the details.
Okay. Yeah.
Just that I think there was a little bit of confusion. And there was some things that came to light afterwards that might cause the planning commission to revisit their decision and to reconsider that. And as I understand it, both parties in this have attorneys, and both have indicated a willingness to appeal. So this could potentially come in front of the city council. Maybe it won't, because hopefully everybody will be operating off the same information, but it could.
Okay.
All right, any other questions about the planning commission? All right, on to the mayor's report. Since becoming mayor, I've met with the Mechanic and Watershed Council, is that correct?
Were we not together?
Yeah,
No, North Coast Land Conservancy.
I cannot get that right. North Coast Land Conservancy about the property with the cottages, Gerhard Cottages LLC. I also met with the gentlemen who represent Gerhard Cottages LLC. I met with several other people, and that's my report for now. Now we'll go on to councilor's report. Rita?
Well, I will be stepping in for in place of the mayor, although I can never really take his place, to award the mayor's award at Trails End on Saturday. Art, have you picked out a winner yet?
Tomorrow,
Okay,
4 o'clock.
all right. I'm done.
Yeah, awesome.
I also met with Carrie in North Coast Land Conservancy. I also met with Wally Hamer at the pickleball courts Monday, I think it was. Got to hear his plea to the city. I told them that we would, discuss it further, I think, and work with maybe the city and try and find some solution, working with I guess there's a local association that can apply for funding, as well as I mentioned our Parks Master Plan, having now the ability to pursue funding if we needed to. Found out more about the overall pickleball in the county, that we're one of the only two outside courts in the county, other than the seaside courts. So yeah, it's good to meet with Wally. I also visited a site with Chad for a tree pruning permit. Looked at that on the Little Beach area. So.
Okay, Dana?
Since our last meeting, I've been asking a lot of questions about what's happened prior to my coming here or joining the council on the police and fire station project. And I understand that the city's done a pretty good job of speaking to subject matter experts and gathering information. And that it's, everybody intends to continue with that. But in my past experience, what we always started with on projects like this is a document called a needs assessment, which can act as a history of the project and allow continuity of the project when participants come and go, so that you have to reinvent the wheel and you're aware of what's come before you and where at the time that it's written, what you think the future is. It looks at it and analyzes the problem from where we were, where we started, where we are now, and what we think will happen in the future. So it's a document that can do all of those things, but can also serve as a basis for grant applications. A lot of grant applications will request a needs assessment of some type. And you can go back and refer to this and gather that information out rather quickly, and it will help you do that. So I would propose that the city start working on a needs assessment. I've done a number of them and successfully submitted them for grant applications in the past. I'd be happy to help if anybody needs any assistance. That would be my thought on that.
That's great. Wonderful idea. I guess we need to discuss that further.
Yes.
Okay, Brent.
Brent, okay. The two major things that I was involved with since the last meeting was participated in the kickoff of the Clatsop Regional Housing Strategy Group meeting. And that involves the county, all of the cities on the North Coast, and trying to get some others involved, only weren't successful with that effort in the initial meeting. The county has been working on affordable housing and workforce housing for quite some time. It last met and completed a study in 2019. And that effort was kind of put on hold for several years by COVID. So this is a re-kickoff of that effort. And the consensus was that the previous quarterly meetings were not frequent enough to really get anything done on a timely basis. So we're going to have monthly meetings. The problem is very widespread throughout the coastal communities, everybody's facing the same issue of not being able to hire people for jobs ranging from lower level service employees to teachers to first responders to actually senior management positions in government. That a lot of the offers that have been made had to be turned down later because they couldn't find housing here. So anyhow, we're exploring a number of options. They're suggesting the expansion of urban growth boundaries, zoning changes, and pursuing alternate finance programs to finance affordable housing and workforce housing. So that's it for now. I also met with one of the 5 rural fire protection board members who administer the Rural Fire Protection District. The board members are responsible for setting their budget, for paying its bills, for arranging its financial audit. They're the legal entity that owns the Herdig Fire Station 4 miles up Highway 101. And they own one of the fire apparatus that is housed at Herdig. So we're exploring communication with them because neither of our constituencies have a good understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the entities. So we'd like to do some educational efforts to get more and better information out there. So we'll be rolling some initiatives out over the next couple of months. And that's it.
Thank you, Trent. Okay, we'll now go to city officers report. Everyone got a copy of the police report on the desk in their packet. And are there any questions? Fire Chief Como?
Yes, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Ms. Christie, could I share my screen, please? Well, I didn't have to become the host. That's a little much.
You asked for the power.
Perfect. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. So July data report. We ended July 2022 on call 410. We had a total of 89 calls for the month of July. Last year, we ended on call 378, so we're 32 calls ahead of last year as of the end of last month, obviously. That averages out to 2.87 calls per day. Now, obviously, we don't get that every single day. There's some days, some few days in a row, we don't get any calls. And there's some days, like we had on 4th of July, like as I reported at the July council meeting, that we had 25 calls in one day. So our team was very busy. Our team did a fantastic job here. And when the call ends, when the incident ends on scene, I should say, that doesn't mean our work ends, our job is done. We have lots of extra stuff we got to put in. We have to report to the state. We have to enter fire incident reports. We have to enter patient care reports and everything. So we've been very, very busy here. And our team that we have here has just done a fantastic job keeping up and moving forward and handling the call volume we had. So it's been going really, really well with that. The call breakdown of the 89 calls, 39 of them was inside the city and 35 was inside the district. 15 of them was automatic mutual aid. We went to Cannon Beach once for a structure fire. We went to Warrenton 4 times. 2 of them was for medical calls, 1 for a motor vehicle accident, and 2 of them was for wildland calls, wildland fires at Camp Rylea. One of those wildland fires was a little over 12 acres in size. We went to Seaside 10 times last month. 2 of them was for extra coverage. They had a couple manpower intensive calls, so they needed some coverage for their station in case they got called out to an additional call. 2 of them was for medical calls. They had like 3 calls at once going on 2 different times, so they just assigned that 3rd medical call to us. We went to it. 1 was for a natural gas leak they needed assist on. Once we went and assisted them in vehicle recovery. They got a lifeguard rig and another vehicle stuck at the north end of their beach. They had to go up there because of calls they had, and in the process, their rigs got stuck. So the MOG was put to good use assisting recovery those vehicles with that. And then Seaside had 4 structure fires last month that we assisted on. We asked for aid 5 times. Once was for a 2nd alarm structure fire that we just recently had. And we put out a press release on that if anybody wants any extra additional information. From that, we had 2 MVAs. One was we just needed some extra manpower one. The other one was an MCI, motor vehicle accident. MVA, sorry, stands for motor vehicle accident. The one that was an MCI, we had, I think it was 9 patients. 1 car had a few kids in it, and then there was multiple vehicles involved. And then one of the vehicles started catching fire while there's occupants stuck inside both of them. So we called a level 2 MCI, which stands for mass casualty incidents, which means if you have any number of patients over beyond what you can directly handle on scene. So we called for assist with that. And we had 2 water rescues, which Seaside still comes in to back us up for water rescues. For that, we asked for aid on. A quick breakdown of those totals. Last month alone, we had 6 structure fires, 2 wildland fires, and those don't count any of the campfire calls or any of the small fires that we had on July 4th. And as I said, one of those was 12 acres at Camp Relia. Then we had 8 motor vehicle accidents for last month. That doesn't mean that the remaining 73 calls were all medical. As I report yearly at my end of year report, medical calls only make up for about 42 to 44% of our calls every year. One of my first council reports I did, I talked about automatic and mutual aid, how that works, how it operates. You guys can kind of go back and look at that for a quick summary. But just to recap, it takes about 5 apparatus and 25 firefighters to handle a single structure fire. That's just a regular automatic tone out, not a 2nd alarm, just a regular fire with that. The fire that we had on 101 and G Street, we went 2nd alarm. We handled that with 26 firefighters and 6 fire apparatuses on scene. And that doesn't include 4 firefighters or chiefs that were operating for command staff. Now I say that to say that this went into 2nd alarm fire, and had this been in Portland or anywhere else, you would be getting around 13 apparatus and 40 firefighters. So the crew we have here locally and countywide, they do such a fantastic job with everything we have here. They handled a 2nd alarm fire with about half the staff. And our county essentially runs as one big fire department when you work within our automatic and mutual aid agreements that we have, just like every Seattle and Portland fire department has. So the crew that we have did a fantastic job. There's no injuries. And for more information, like I said, you can see our press release about that 2nd alarm structure fire with that. Continuing on with the radio communications I've been telling you guys about, we're still waiting for the extra repeaters to be installed on Tillamook Head to increase our radio coverage, to make our radio quality better for communicating to our firefighters as well as to dispatch. The grants, we still have not heard anything back from the AFG or the SAFER grant. They're still pending. Last Friday was the first Friday they started announcing awards for that. So every Friday they'll put a group of them out for that. So if we are lucky and we get awarded to replace our water tender, we will know in the next coming weeks, hopefully with that. And I don't know a timeline at all when they're going to start awarding SAFER grants with that. The grant we got from Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office for summer staffing is going very, very well. Because of that grant, we've had extra staffing on, and we've been able to have great work done. We're able to fully staff our rigs during the workday, which is when we have a little bit harder time of getting people with that for coverage and stuff. We recently were awarded an AFG grant, and that AFG grant was for communications in the amount of, so it was a regional grant that was for all of South County Fire Department. So that includes Hamlet, Cannon Beach, Seaside, and us. Our portion of that grant was in the amount of $122,589, which got us 31 portable radios and 11 mobile radios. Portable radios is like the walkie-talkies each person has and to hang on to, and the mobiles is what goes in the apparatus. That radio grant and that equipment is replacing the equipment that we got from a radio grant from AFG in 2009. So we have equipment back from them that we've been hanging on for years, and that radio equipment has kind of exceeded its useful lifespan. With that, there's been 2 fire departments that has asked for the old radios that are being replaced, Lewis and Clark Fire Department in our county, as well as Mid-Columbia Fire and Rescue. Now, these radios are in pretty rough shape, and we can't benefit monetarily from them, but I wanted to get a consensus from council because they're equipment that we have here. They're blessing to donate these radios to them. They're wanting to kind of reappropriate some parts and use them to float their equipment they have on a little bit longer so they can have operable radios. North County is waiting on to see if they get awarded a radio grant, and Columbia River Fire and Rescue, in 2 years, they're switching to a different radio module that they have to get all new radios for, and their radios they have aren't working, so they can't afford to buy all new radios now and then all new radios again when countywide they switch to a different radio band. So Seaside Fire, as well as other fire agencies in the county, are donating some, not all, of their old Motorola's that we got on the radio grant to these departments. And I want to get a consensus from council if their thoughts, if that was something okay that we did as well.
I believe it's a great idea, but councilors?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, with the mutual aid agreements, we're actually helping ourselves by doing that because we could be dependent on them.
Yeah, I agree.
And we can't sell it because that's a grant restriction. So yeah, donating it makes the most sense. Let's do it.
Perfect. So we'll put that in there, and I'll let you guys know how many goes to each department when we actually do it. And like I said, we won't get rid of all of them. We'll keep a couple extra backup for here, the ones that actually work alone and stuff, and we'll go forward with that. Thank you very much.
Great.
And I know they will very much appreciate that. For a quick reminder, fire season went in on July 11th. You can go to that link for burning regulations restrictions. And unless there's any questions for council, that concludes my report.
I have no questions.
Chief, I have a quick question. Do you want to give us an update on the wildfires here in Oregon and our crew?
Yes. So we deployed a crew at 3 a.m. to Maupin for the Miller Road fire. We sent one apparatus. Seaside sent a couple, a staff rig and a Type 6. Lewis and Clark, Astoria, and Napa also sent rigs, Task Force 9. Yesterday alone in the state of Oregon, there was 2,300 lightning strikes in our state. So with all of those lightning strikes and other fires going on, the governor signed a conflagration act for the Miller Road fire, as well as a few other ones, to enable deploying resources through, they call it OFMAS, Oregon Fire Mutual Aid System. So we have one crew out, one task force from the county. There is a few fires. There's a lot of fires burning around the county, a lot of them at ODF, a lot of them state land. They're being handled. There's only, this is the only conflag that I know of currently going in Oregon. Oregon also has 3 task forces in California assisting them with the fire that was 7 miles from the Oregon border. I believe right now it's almost touching the Oregon border down south, down there. So statewide, we're fully engaged in fire season. They're moving good. Up till about last month, maybe last week, Clatsop County was the only county throughout the state that was not in a state of emergency for drought. So everybody else is in much worse condition than we are for for fire danger. There's getting lots of lightning strikes. They've been getting lots of hot weather. And when we get hot weather, especially in central and southern Oregon, I think it's when Madras gets above 80 degrees in temperature, it creates this weather effect. They call it the Chetco winds, that they get high winds that rip south and west through our state that just take these fires and explode them. The fire that our crew's on, it was originally, when it was first noticed, it was 75 acres. About 4 hours into it, it went to 450 acres. When our crew deployed, it was at 1,000. And as of this morning, it was at 9,100. So overnight, it grew 8,000 acres, just the one fire that they're on. So winds are driving these, dry conditions that are everywhere driving these. And we're fully involved in wildland fire statewide.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, guys.
Justine?
Okay. The finance report this month, the 2022-2023 fiscal year is officially underway. The city's general fund is starting with a very strong beginning fund balance. This is attributed to primarily three things. The American Rescue funds that we received last year that we didn't spend. It was about $127,000, so it rolled over in our beginning fund balance. The additional marijuana local tax collection that had been going to the state was about $90,000, and it was correctly distributed to the city last year. And a very robust transient room tax collections. Higher than it has ever been, and very strong, even not in a very aggressive COVID state, where they had shut down things. So we were glad to see that. This month, property tax prior years has already exceeded the budgeted expectations. That's due to 3 payments that were received by Clatsop County for potential refund credit, which they call PRC accounts. They were for CenturyLink 2019, 2020, and 2021 that the county had been holding pending appeals. And according to ORS 305-286, upon final resolution of the appeal to which the PRC relates, each taxing district gets a portion of the PRC plus interest compounded on the investment account for the period of time withheld, and it's distributed to us. So they made those payments. Those 3 payments alone were over $15,000. So healthy little chunk, which was actually our money that they were just holding. At this point, the city is continuing the positive revenue pathways in building permits, marijuana tax, and transient room tax collections. So we're glad to see, comparing last year at this time to this year at this time, which is only a month into it, they're very strong and staying strong compared to last year. The fire department has received the restricted grant for $35,000. And that's created new revenue and expenditure accounts in our chart of accounts. The revenue account is the 100089. We called it grants, restricted fire and staffing. So that money in the revenue line is shown there. In expenditures, in July, the city pays our annual workers' comp premium, which is divided between different salary classifications, as well as our annual liability auto insurance premium, which is divided between the general fund and the water fund, and the annual League of Oregon City membership dues. So those lines seem exceptionally high because they're an annual payment that we pay. The July 1st budgeted COLA of 5.9%, which had gone through our budget committee and approved by our council, has also been implemented on salaries. And that was based on the Social Security Administration COLAs, or where that amount came from. An account had been added to the fire department, which was account 101314. That shows that temporary grant labor that Josh referenced, and the $35,000 revenue that I talked about earlier. So we'll track that so we can see how we're spending that, and we can easily report back to them on that amount. The city is also preparing for our annual audit. The auditors are scheduled to be on site August 25th and 26th. So they're coming up. We have to have everything ready for them next week, which will not be a problem. City staff has also started the process of the software exploration, because that's what I'm going to call it. Our first presentation was very promising until we saw the price quote. We will continue to look at software options and try to balance cost, efficiency, and program department integration options. We saw a very robust program with lots of options, maybe more than we need. So we're hoping to talk to them more and look at other options and other software companies. And so we'll talk to the auditors when they come to and talk about the recommended level of software needs that they think that we need, being so small. Because we want it to be financially feasible, but we also want best practices on a financial side. So we kind of want to work with them to see. They're not going to recommend a software company to us because they're trying to be a third party. They will tell us software companies they work with and say things they like and don't like. So we will meet with them and see if we can find something that works for us. There's some great opportunities. We also had after 35 years, I don't know if the city of Gerhart has used them for 35 years, but Sunset Resort has closed their doors in Astoria. They take our mail and run it for us. So they gave us 2 weeks notice. So within the next 2 weeks, we're going to have to decide how we're going to process our mail here, because we've never done that in-house.
Interesting. Another folding machine and a stamper. Holy cow.
So that's just a new thing for us.
Okay.
And that's what we've been doing.
Great, thank you very much.
What's the American Rescue Fund, and why wasn't it used last year?
It is COVID relief funds. And last year, really, they did a lot of, and maybe Peter has more to comment on it, but they did a lot of just citing, and we just got another FAQ on what it can be spent for. It has to be very specific things. And we didn't have any targeted plans.
Are we anticipating another bunch of money? I shouldn't say bunch, some more money from them?
We received half.
Okay, so we will be receiving more. Okay.
Yep, we were receiving the same amount, so, yep.
Thank you.
Well, Justine, I should probably wish you a happy fiscal new year.
I like that.
And I did want to ask on the accounting system search, are you exploring the capacity for the vendor to convert and import historical data into the new system?
Yeah, that was one of the things that was a little shocking with how much. And again, something I think that just requires us to ask more questions. One of the things is integrating potentially the water system. And we have used Springbrook for many, many years, and it has a lot of consumption data, a lot of vendor data, meter data we don't want to lose. And so the conversion costs were pretty substantial for them to take down our data and to put it in there. So just talking with them a little bit more about what that looks like and what exactly needs to be converted and not converted, because we will have to convert some things.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I figured it would be spendy, but Yeah, sometimes you can actually do the conversion either in-house or through another third party outside of the vendor. But
Well, and I agree with you, and one of the things that they talked about, the salesperson talked about, is how easy it is for the particular software that we looked at to upload data, you know, so you could take spreadsheets and upload and download. A lot of that stuff, some of our software does now, you know, so we could maybe do some of it ourselves. We would just need to kind of dig in a little bit deeper about what that means.
right. Okay, sounds like you're very on top of it. Thank you.
Any other questions? City Attorney Peter Watts.
Yeah, and I'll start with ARPA because our treasurer kind of queued that up for me. The final treasury regulations regarding how those funds can be spent came out about 2 months ago. Prior to that, we had some interim rules that we could look at and hopefully rely upon. And then we had the final rules for comment, where they were taking public comment for deciding whether to change them or not. And then now we have the final rules, which kind of govern how we can spend the money. The idea is that the goal was that money would be spent on water, sewer, broadband, those sort of things, so that the people negatively impacted by COVID would, people with failing water infrastructure that could be covered. There are special rules for cities that have a qualified census tract. I don't believe we have one of those, as well as tribal governments. All other cities are kind of somewhat limited in how we can spend the money, actually a lot more limited than most people think. A lot of the stories that have come out about spending, particularly around issues like affordable housing, are by cities that do have a qualified census tract. So they have a lot more flexibility to spend the money than we do. The type of projects we'll be looking at will be water projects like water meters, any pipe replacement, any lead pipes that we're aware of, that sort of thing. Those are ones that are very clearly legal ways to spend the money. And then outside of the explicit, in the Treasury guidance, it's about 70 pages. Outside of those explicit ways to spend the money, then just everything comes with more legal risk. And so we'd have to weigh that. But the safest projects are going to be those water, broadband type of projects. Fall squarely into safe harbor. I think I had mentioned at our special meeting, because housing has been a big issue here and other places on the North Oregon coast, that I had a meeting with Senator Armitage and one of her staffers who's been looking at these issues, and North Coast, and then her district wide, which includes Tillamook County, Columbia County, parts of Washington County as well. And what we looked at were the Portland state population amendments between 2010 and 2020, and then the census. And the reason is because those Portland state estimates were used to also estimate future growth and whether we would be able to do urban growth boundary expansions. And they looked at this countywide or rezones, because place like Gerhardt, we don't have a lot of places we could expand an urban growth boundary, given that we have the ocean to the west. We've got water to the south, and then we have some challenges to the east, and the north is kind of built out at urban density. Portland State had estimated our population growth between 10 and 20 at 83 people. Our actual was, per the census, was 331. So they had said 5.7%. It was actually 22.6. Astoria had been estimated at 198. The actual was 704. So 2.1% versus 7.4% actual. Seaside was 106. Actual was 658. So 1.7% versus 10.2. Then Warrington, they had said an increase to 361. The actual was 1,288. So the estimate was 77.2% and the actual was 25.8%. In addition to land use, these estimates are used to give us our amount of state funds. So that's the highway trust fund revenues, the liquor revenues, the marijuana tax revenues, the cigarette tax revenues, and the 911 tax revenues. It adds up to just under $109 a person, which might not seem like a lot, but you know, in 2020, that would have been an extra 24,000, or 2021, that would have been an extra $24,611 to the city. And if you extrapolate that over a decade, because the numbers didn't just go wrong in a year. Obviously, they've been lagging the actual for a decade. We are talking six figures. And if you look at just those four cities in the county, it would be more like 240,000 that we were shorted. So seven figures over the decade. So we had suspected that there were issues. I've talked about it a lot. I've looked at the numbers myself, but it was pretty stark to get the actual numbers and to see how they were off by 4x, 5x. And that has real implications as far as our buildable lands inventory, our housing needs analysis, because if your estimates looking back 10 years are off by 4x, then your estimates looking forward 20 years are probably going to be off by a similar amount. And very frustrating because of all the work that people put into the buildable lands inventory and housing needs analysis, just a few short years ago, that data no longer looks like it's accurate or reliable, or we can rely upon it. That might be one of the reasons that there seems to be such a workforce housing shortage in Clatsop County. So I think that, I was happy to hear that Bren is on that group that's looking at that issue. I'd be glad to share this data or zoom into one of those meetings to talk about this with that group, because I think we're going to have to marshal our resources. Senator Armitage was, really still trying to process this information as she understood the impact from a shared state revenue standpoint, as well as a housing standpoint on her district. I think she's interested in perhaps some legislation. And then I've actually heard from a number of rural counties as well that were significantly undercounted and are also similar to Clatsop County in kind of a workforce housing emergency, that are interested in, not necessarily placing blame, but trying to take steps to make sure that our numbers are as accurate as possible and that we have good numbers going forward that we can rely upon. And so I think that as more people become aware of the disconnect between the estimates and the reality, that there's going to be more urgency around doing something. So I think that's something that we should really be aware of going forward. And the other thing that I'd say is that one of the cities that Portland State has overestimated, there's some that it's not that everybody has been underestimated. It's some that have been overestimated And so there have also been cities that have gotten more money than they would have been, you know, than they should have gotten over the period. And so it's kind of a challenging issue, but it's an issue that I think needs everyone's attention. And so I will continue to keep you guys in the loop as I hear more about it and as more things come to light. As far as other news, I think I'd mentioned previously that the Shannon Smith litigation we had received notice that was being appealed to the Oregon Court of Appeals, and they're trying to schedule a settlement conference. So my hope would be that maybe that could finally be resolved. It seems like it's been going on for forever. And other than that, not too much excitement. So it's always good.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions? All right, let's move on to city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. You've got my report. It's got some things in there that just real brief. I'll update you on a few things to kind of dovetail onto what Peter was saying. You know, at the time when our numbers were for buildable lands was kind of brought down from the 700 to almost 380 or so buildable lots available in Gearhart. Since that time, we probably built about 70 new houses since that data came out. So we're getting down into the pretty close to less than a 20-year supply. We'll start delving into that data a little bit harder now that we have some of these other numbers and things, but that'll be coming up in a lot of the assessment reports that we're going to be working on here in the future. The building department seems to be a little busier all of a sudden. Things are steady. We haven't slowed down, but it's going well. We have Mayor Smith's survey. The surveys continue to come in, and I believe we have yet to send the second mailing out for that, correct? So we've got an entire August water bill where people will receive those surveys as well. So we don't have any timeline as far as when to receive the surveys. We're just going to keep getting them until things kind of slow down there. Christy is busy putting the information into a format that can be usable. The other things I wanted to do, the 2022 wildfire season staffing grant, the $35,000 we were awarded was thankfully we were awarded that because these funds were set up to actually supplement the fire departments while other members of the team are out fighting fires around Oregon. So it's working as planned, and it's really helping us out with our staffing. So congratulations to the fire department for doing that. Thank you. The Mechanic and Watershed Council, Noah and his team have been busy removing noxious weeds. They're going to be looking at planting some new native species here soon. We're working with homeowners agreements to potentially work on some land that's overgrown that we can help with, as long as they maybe keep the plants for more than a few years. We can come up with an agreement to help them out. So Noah continues to write grants, and I think it's for the betterment of Gearhart for sure. We could use a few more volunteers. Last one was a little short of volunteers, but all in all, we've had a pretty good turnout. The next dates for that are going to be August 16th, August 21st, August 26th, and August 27th. So keep an eye on the blog, and it's been kind of great to meet all these people, a lot of which I haven't met before, so it's nice. On our radar, we have work sessions on August 18th and also August 30th. And of note, the beach wheelchair, we have in this city a beach wheelchair that was donated through Randy Anderson, and the beach wheelchair is stored up at the condos. And so I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware that any time that somebody might need something like that, contact the city or contact the condo association up in with Paul Tice, and they can make that available to people at no charge. We maintain it, and they store it for us. So we've gotten some use out of it recently. For now, that's all that I have to report.
Thank you. In correspondence, we have two letters that came in. One is from Kathy Brooks about the survey, and the other is from Tom Tees. And I believe Tom is going to be talking tonight, so I'll let him read his letter. And now we're on to visitors. Chad?
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna be on the clock?
Ready to go.
Okay. And first person that I have on the list is Beth Cameron. Would you state your name and address, please, for the record?
Beth Cameron, 2906 Pine Court. Good evening. This is going to be short. I just want to thank you all for sending out the survey. Citizen input is really important. And while yes, no surveys don't give you a lot of information because they are black and white, it is at least a beginning. I would like to encourage the council, the mayor, city manager, etc. I'd like to encourage all of you to review the surveys that were posted to Million Friends of Gerhardt. The questions, answers, and posts might actually help you in moving forward with the fire station issue. There's been a lot of contention surrounding the issue in the past, but I believe that through honest and transparent and inclusive dialogue, we can all compromise on a course of action so that it's the best for Gerhardt. I also want to say I'm really looking forward to the town hall meetings. So I'm anxiously awaiting the announcement of those dates. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you very much for at least moving forward.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. Next on the list is Tom Tees. Name and address, please.
Tom Teese, 292 Woodland Avenue, Gerhardt, Oregon. I would like to say thank you to our city manager, Chad Sweet, and all the office people there who worked so hard to keep things going. Our ex-mayor, Paulina Cockrum, for doing such a fantastic job while she was here. And now for our new mayor, Carrie Smith. City council and our planning commission that has worked so hard to keep Gerhardt for what it is. And all this without getting paid. I may not agree with city council on all things and planning commission on all things, but it would be pretty boring if everyone agreed on everything. I'd also like to say to the police department for upholding our laws and our monthly reports, good job. City maintenance workers for everything they do to keep our city looking good. Thank you very much. Water department. Thank you for keeping that building looking good and keeping clean restrooms, fixing water lines, water meters, and everything else you do. Thank you. Fire department. I want to give a great big shout out for our retired chief, Bill Eddy, and now our new fire chief, Josh Como, and all the fire department volunteers for everything they do for the residents of Gerhardt, plus the part-timers and the people driving by. Also, all over our state and out of state to help out when it's needed with our fires. Thank you for your monthly reports, Josh. I love them. Keep it up. Our city and the whole area is growing so fast. In turn, our fire department works harder and goes on more calls. All the hours of training they have to do every year to keep their certificates up. Most of all, the help they gave me January 17th of 2018 and the few times since then, I don't believe I would be here without our fire department. Thank you very much. And that's signed me and my wife, Stacy, too. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. All right, next on the list is Brian Habaker. If you're there, state your name and address, please.
Brian Habaker, 664 Creekside Drive. You guys hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah. Dang, ditto to Tom Teese and the thanks. That was great. It's kind of hard to follow that. But I'm calling, thank you, as he said, I'm calling, and I sent you guys all an email about this, and I talked to Chad about this previously, but I'll just kind of recap it for everybody else here. It's about the Ridge Path, which I know is a big priority to everybody here. And it's awesome that Duncan's Crossing was kind of realized this last year. And the problem is you can't access any streets north of that. You can't get off the path until you get to Kearhart Road. And the reason is because of all the development on Creekside Drive, Creekside Court, and also on Meadow, which is the new development up there. Just plans were made for any kind of access point. Now, for a while there, it hasn't been a problem because there is a lot that has not been developed yet at the end of Creekside Drive. And current houses there and this empty lot. However, recently the owner of that house decided to blockade that access point with branches of some sort. And so timing is sort of of the essence if we want to make this a priority to still allow these access points. So like we got to work out some sort of situation with the developer Max Ritchie. I left a message for him a year ago about the issue, and I did send him an email. But I don't know, maybe an idea is to just to avoid future issues with this is to, if you guys consider creating an ordinance that mandates access to the Ridge Path and then doesn't get obstructed in the future, and that way we won't have this problem down the line if it becomes one. I'm just throwing out possibilities, but I'm hoping you guys can maybe come up with a solution for us. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Brian. It's a good idea to have something in place, and we'll be checking into something down there on, what is it?
Meadow Court,
Meadow Court.
those two neighborhoods.
Creekside Drive is my street, so that's what I'm rooting for. Yeah.
Oh, okay, we'll keep that in mind. Thank you. All right, next on the list is Jane Gable. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. Jane Gable, 714 H Street. Carrie, this question is for you, but first, thanks for the survey. We have completed ours and returned it. One of the questions on it was about town hall meetings, and you have in the past said you were interested in having them. I have a question. What are your plans to date, and what organizational things have you done to handle these? And I don't understand exactly how you can have town hall meetings open to the public, but we can't have city council meetings open to the public. If you could clarify that for me, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. This isn't a question and answer period, but I will answer this question. There's been nothing done about the town hall surveys. And as far as why we're having a closed meeting at this time, it's because of something I saw and something I heard. And so I'm doing something about security for the council and people that work in City Hall. And that is why we are closed until such time as I feel that we have adequate measures in place that will help mitigate any kind of confrontation.
Thank you.
All right, is that it?
That's it for me, Carrie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Harold Gable, you're next up. Would you state your name and address, please, for the record?
Yes, Harold Gable, 714 H Street, Gearhart. Carrie, this is really directed more to Chad. It's a situation. Will you be voting to reauthorize the UGB land swap agreement that is in opposition to the vast majority of what our community who are against it stated?
I'm sorry, we're not voting on that at this time. We are going to have a work session. And that's about all I can say to that because I don't run the council and tell them what to do.
Just Chad, do you have anything to add to that?
No, absolutely. I don't have a vote in the council, of course, and so I serve at the pleasure of the council and the direction. So I'll follow up once they start doing so.
Wasn't that designed to be added with agreements before August is over?
It's not, no, not
land swap?
necessarily, and the agreement has been talked about, but no action at the moment.
Okay, if that's the best we can do, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Is there anyone on call that did not sign up that wants to use the raise hand indicator?
Got one hand up, Mr. Mayor. Mitch Cogan.
Okay, Mitch, would you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Mitch Cogan, 117 Ridge Drive. Got a few things I'd like to discuss. First, like others, I'd like to welcome Dana to the council. I'd like to congratulate Mayor Smith on his new position. I was very heartened in the June 6th meeting, which I believe was the first meeting that the mayor chaired in an interim role. And I was very heartened to hear his take on where he felt things were after the very contentious and adversarial election about the fire bond. And, you know, as I recall, there was some statements to the effect of trying to reach out and work towards partnering with the community and trying to get past those bad feelings that had, you know, been really significantly heightened in the community. Then again, as happy as I was with the way that that sounded, I was very quickly discouraged by what appears to be the way this new administration is going to be handling things. In particular, within 12 hours of the end of that meeting, suddenly there were all these talks about gun threats going on in town. And coming right on the heels of the shooting in Uvalde, that was, you know, a very, the community was very labile, I think, in their feelings about that. So I think it got a lot of people very concerned. So it appears in response to that gun threat, which I think is what Mayor Smith was just referring to a moment ago when he said that he saw and heard things that concerned him. You know, we are now relegated to Zoom meetings for city council. We're spending $13,000 on new doors. Apparently there's a plan to spend $5,000 on magnetometers. And later tonight, there's going to be discussion about implementing a restrictive ordinance regarding guns in town, something which has never existed in the town's 100 years or more of existence. Given these actions, I think the community needs to understand, what is this gun threat?
Is that what you're asking? Are you done talking, Mitch?
That I am asking that, yes. Please define the gun threat.
Define the gun threat. It's I have seen weapons in a picture.
I can handle this one.
Thank you, Peter.
We received information that people were bringing guns to our city council meetings. Those people might have had concealed carry permits. I don't know. but that's the information we received. And I think if they had people had noticed them, I mean, so if that's happening, I think that not knowing whether somebody has a concealed carry license or not knowing what their intentions are, if their intention is for self-protection or something else, that some reasonable steps need to be taken place. And, Mitch is an attorney, that anytime you walk into a courthouse in the state of Oregon, you're walking through a metal detector, and that there are cities in the state of Oregon that you're walking through a medical detector. And I don't think any of us ever thought that Gerhardt will be one of those, but given the increase in shootings nationally and that information that people believed that other people were bringing weapons to city council meetings, that's probably a conversation that the city council needs to have. What their decision is up to them, not to me.
Well, given that this is having a significant impact on the community, not just from a cost standpoint, but from a further division of the community, I think it's incumbent on the council to explain to the people what this was. These vague, well, somebody said something about someone coming to the council with guns. Who? Who said that? Who was going to be bringing guns, Peter?
No, we received information that people saw
From who?
other people with
From
guns.
who? From who?
Why would I give you information that would make a situation worse?
I don't think it would make it worse. I think it would make it better.
Mitch, your time is up, and thank you very much for your question. If you've got more questions, will you put it in writing and bring it to City Hall, and we will answer them in a timely fashion. But thank you.
I would be happy to do that, and I'll expect timely answers.
All right, no other raised hand issue? Then let's move on. We're going to go to ordinances and resolution. Number 1 is 934. An ordinance amending Gerhardt City Code to follow state contracting rules and procurement processes. I have talked to Chad, and I would like to table this and move it to a work session so we have a chance to go through this and decide if this is actually something we want to do, because I believe it opens the door and allows a lack. We lose one of the parts of our oversight on money by allowing a contract for $150,000 to be a sealed bid one, but in our rules of construction, I believe we go to what is it, $10,000 before we go. So I would like to move it to a work session.
May I ask for clarification, just so before the work session, on something in this?
Sure.
On the paragraph that's for large procurement, the second line says, where the state law requires formal bids for procurement starting at and exceeding 150,000. I believe that's impossible. How can you start at and exceed 150,000? Does that mean it starts at 10,000 and does not exceed 150,000?
No.
It's exceeding $150,000.
But what does it start at?
It starts at 150,000.
The intermediate is, for state, is 10 to 150,000.
Okay.
The intermediate.
All right, thank you.
So from 10 and then 10 to 150
I got it.
and then over 150.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
I was under the impression that this was a response to state and federal requirements for I guess, but in my case, I know that in some cases, if you have federal grants or state grants, you have to have this process in place in order to fulfill their requirements. So I'm happy to discuss it later on, but just keeping that in mind, that if that is true, that we could follow that.
Right, and I don't, Peter, is that true? Or because we have a more restrictive policy, we are still within the bounds of state law, aren't we?
Right, so there's certain things that we would have to follow, such as wage and hour, those sort of things for public money and public contracts. There are the state laws that get passed every year, and then we could be under those levels and still be within the confines of the law safely, but it's kind of a floor and a ceiling. The reason this came up is we now have staff that are able to look at things like our folks like Christy, who are just doing an outstanding job, Justine. And so we were looking at when was the last time our public contracting code sections were updated. I think it was either 2008 or 2009. So there have been a lot of changes since then. And so, one of the things that we could do, the easiest fix would be to conform our rules with the state laws. The other thing would be to go through kind of rule by rule and decide which ones we wanted to adjust. That's just a far more intensive process, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't do it. And if there were floors or ceilings that, if we want to carve out some contracting amounts from those, but otherwise conform to the state statutes, that'll be option number 3. But yeah, I think a work session will be a great place to talk about all this, because we do have a lot of different options.
So if I got consensus, just to table this to our next,
I second.
one or the other work session on this month.
I agree.
So included in one of these.
Yeah. Brent, how are you?
Work session's fine.
Okay. Then we'll move on to Resolution 974. And this is weapons banned from Gerhart City Council meetings. We are not banning weapons in the city of Gerhart. We are banning them in the council meetings in City Hall. I want to be perfectly clear about this. We're not doing anything about taking someone's right to have a weapon unless they're in City Hall. Chad, would you like to read this?
Sure, I can get started with this and then I'll defer to Peter, who helped us put this together as well. But at the request of the members of the council, staff began researching increased security measures for the City Hall, including the installation of crash doors with key card readers, security cameras, metal detection. It's been requested that any object defined as a deadly weapon in the state of Oregon be banned from the city council meetings and metal detection be used for that enforcement. Staff doesn't have any recommendation at this point. This is a council decision. You may motion to approve Res 974 banning weapons from the council meetings and permitting the use of metal detection to enforce the ban or not. So we have some legal analysis that shows that 3554 allows city to invoke a ban. And the purchase is under $5,000 for equipment. We do have budget for that. And some of the staff costs to handle this are still yet to be unseen, but I think will be manageable if you decide to do so. And from there, if Peter had anything to add.
No, I mean, we tried to come up with something that was reasonable. We want to be respectful of people's Second Amendment rights, but the goal was also that both the council and other members of the audience would feel safe when attending city council meetings and would know that other members of the audience didn't have a deadly weapon with them.
Amen.
Well, I could ask for a motion so we can go to discussion if you like.
I do have a clarifying question to ask. And I realize that this doesn't apply citywide, but the resolution as it currently reads is for city council meetings. So this would not be applicable to town hall meetings or planning commission meetings.
Oh, it should be.
I think somebody's got a phone unmuted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got it.
Well, we could amend this to say city meetings including planning commission meetings, city council, planning commission, and town halls. I mean, we can make that adjustment. When we're looking at this, the concern was specifically about city council meetings. So that's why it was drafted in this manner, but it could be broadened.
Yeah, I think if we're going to do it, we might as well make it protective more broadly.
Well, if we said for town halls, then we'd have to get a metal detector door for the fire station.
We have a movable one.
Oh, all right.
We do not have a movable one. We are going to consider,
A movable one.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone like to make a motion?
I have another question.
Okay, then.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Chad, you said that there were staff costs to add. What were you speaking of?
Set up, tear down, and maintenance of the systems as we use them. I think that's a minor cost. And also we'll need somebody to be able to be a person at this metal detector. So it would involve us potentially bringing in an officer to staff that at the meetings, which currently they don't come to all of them. So there may be some schedule adjustments or there may be some overtime depending on how things go. So that's what I was talking about.
So would Public Works be able to assemble this, or would it require a special technician to come in and install it?
The one I'm looking at, Counselor, is that it's portable. So within minutes, it can be taken apart, put into a cart, stored away, and then hopefully within minutes, it could be put back together as necessary. It's got a battery system, it also plugs in. And it can be moved around that way a lot easier than a traditional metal detector.
So it wouldn't be up at all times, like just if we're open to the public for usual business?
Correct, for the meetings as
Right,
stated
okay.
in the resolution.
Okay, thanks.
And I think even then, it would still be an option for council, depending on what the situation is.
No, you go ahead. I do have something. I have a discussion rather than a question.
Yeah, I guess the officer would probably have to be present throughout the whole meeting, I'm assuming. Because if that person leaves and comes back in, that's sort of, they'd have to be checked.
Correct, and also somebody who might come in late, or what have you, so just to maintain the security, yes.
My other question was, does any other cities in the area have metal detectors? Do we know if Seaside or Astoria has those? Just curious.
Not that I'm aware of, although again, the county does do this for their court cases in the courtroom.
Is it time for discussion?
We need a motion, so we can go to discussion.
Okay, I'll give you the motion.
A second,
I'll second.
okay? Discussion.
Okay, well, let me preface this by saying I understand that everybody nowadays is much more aware of gun violence than we ever were in the past. And I understand that it can be a real concern for some people. And I want to say up front that perhaps my threshold of fear is different from others, having done the job that I did for 30 years. I look at things a little differently. I've also worked a number of city council meetings as security. And somebody brought up the idea of why we have somebody here. I have never understood that, why we don't have a uniformed officer here during these meetings. And it's not just for gun violence, it's for everything. The uniform presence here sends a message that there are rules and we're going to enforce them. And it just people tend to act better when the uniform is present. And I believe that you would have to have that person here to run the metal detector anyway, so I would like to see that person here. They could also answer questions. As far as the metal detectors go, I have absolutely no problem with the wand. But I have also purchased a number of metal detectors. I've operated a number of metal detectors. And I just want everybody to be on the same page with the limitations of metal detectors. A portable metal detector like the one that's proposed here, I don't personally, in my experience, I don't find them extremely reliable. I don't have a lot of confidence in them. They also present a lot of problems. You have to, somebody who wears jewelry like I do has to keep the arms in really tight. They have to go through. You might have problems with wheelchairs and other things. And then we get into areas that we perhaps do not want to get into. I have absolutely no problem with buying a wand. I just, the sheriff has weighed in. He's done a threat assessment. The chief has done a threat assessment. Based on my experience, I look at this and I don't know if this quite rises to the level of we need to have people walk through a metal detector here when afterwards, just for this one meeting or any meeting, and then we're going to walk out to our cars and be vulnerable at that time. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I'm not saying that you can never say that we're 100% safe. You can never ever say that. I'm just saying that there's fear, and then there's realistic and relevant fear. And I don't see that this rises to the level of something like that. I would support buying the inexpensive wand just to have on hand should something change in a moment. I also support the idea of saying, hey, if you want to bring a purse into our meetings, it would have to be a clear purse, a small purse, because some people will need to bring in medications or might need to have other medical devices or something on them, and you have to allow them to do that. So a clear container. I have no problem with being told I can't bring my purse anymore. And I have no problem with saying you can't bring weapons to the meeting. I think that is, you'll find that many different city council meetings, that would be the rule in place, because these do become places where people have arguments and they strong emotions. And so it's a good idea to say no to that. I have absolutely no problem with that. I just would like to see us think very carefully about buying this metal detector. To get a really good, reliable walkthrough metal detector, you really have to spend some money. This one only has a 2-year limited warranty if you buy the battery pack, so we probably have to buy additional batteries. That could be an issue. I don't see it as something that would probably work well with the existing electrical system in an old building like this, but that's just a guess. I could be wrong on that, but that's my strong suspicion that it could cause problems, whether you've got the 110 or the 220. That would be additional money, and there's upkeep. So I would just think very carefully about that. I did support the doors. I know people are asking about the doors. The doors I supported because there are additional ADA issues and other things. Doors just need to be replaced from time to time. And that to me was the common sense kind of thing. Let's do doors while we have the opportunity. So there's let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Yes, well, yes. Yeah, I got it. And now, and the last thing that I want to say is that I think that a metal detector would also, people are already expressing fear. We want people to feel comfortable coming here. We want the public to come here. So whatever we have to do to make them feel comfortable, I just think that going that far might tip it to we're scaring them and they don't want to come. And that's certainly, I don't think anybody's intent. I think we want to make everybody feel safe.
Well, I bow to your expertise. You've got 30 years of this, and I've only got 60 days, not even 60 days. Honestly, I felt when I suggested we do this, I felt alarmed by what I saw and what I heard. And I know people say if you see something or you hear something, you have to do something. And that's the first thing I did was go, let's beef up security.
Right.
Dan, are you suggesting that you would be supportive of the weapons ban, but also that we have a uniform officer in the room?
That would be my recommendation. As somebody who on a department I was a commander, we were always expected to attend our city council meetings, to be there to answer questions, and also, like I said, to show the uniform. We also had a second officer, but we were most of our cities, I worked in small cities like this, but I also worked in large cities. When it's available, you would have a second officer. However, I don't think that would be reasonable in our city, especially with the shortage of manpower that we have. We don't have the resources for that. But I would like to see the chief attend these in person, again, just because the uniform sends that message that the rules apply. We're going to enforce them, and it's proactive rather than reactive. If we were to ever have a problem, you'd certainly want him there, and you don't want him responding from however long away his house is. So there's that.
It's a good idea.
And also, I would like to add that I, as a retired law enforcement officer, I do have a CCW. I do not bring my weapons to these meetings. That's how safe I feel, or how confident I am of my threat assessment here. Maybe I shouldn't say that because now everybody knows I don't have mine. But I would have no problem if somebody told me it's common. I can't take them into federal I can't take my gun into federal buildings. I can't drive by within so many feet of schools. It's fairly common practice. And I think that this would be a good place to say, no, you can't have it here. But again, knowing that some people will not follow the rules, we do need to have the chief.
Okay. So this is a ban on having deadly weapons in city hall or at city meetings.
Yeah, it needs to be more inclusive.
Okay, so can we, Peter, can we just add on to this resolution saying any city meeting, any town hall?
Yeah,
And city hall in general. I mean, for the protection of our employees.
right. I mean, I think you can just say no deadly weapons at city hall or at any city meetings. So that would cover town hall meetings at the firehouse. That would cover just city hall in general, as well as, any city council meetings or planning commission meetings.
Dan, are you recommending that we don't have a walk-through metal detector, or that we just need a more expensive one? What would you prefer?
I'm saying that I don't see the need to spend city money on that right now.
Okay.
I don't think we've took that far, and I would be open to it in the future. And again, like I said, that's based on my threat assessment, and I have a fairly high threshold for what scares me. If you all feel strongly that there is a danger, I could be convinced, but right now I don't see it. I don't see it. Thank you.
The synopsis doesn't, the synopsis is a synopsis, so the resolution doesn't need to be changed if we're not suggesting.
It's all we're doing is adding any city meeting.
We may need to make some changes because it does dictate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph down, where it says before entry into the city council meetings is permitted, visitors will be asked to pass through a metal detector. We might be able to change that verbiage to say may, if that's helpful.
More permissive.
That, because that
Right.
gives you an opportunity to change your
Right.
your thought on this or your concerns if they come in a little bit more seriously. So there are a few other places where we need to make some changes, but most of it here should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the permissive, maybe check for weapons. And if we go the wand route, either now or down the road, it gives us flexibility to pursue that at a subsequent time.
And it gives us a stopgap in case we do need to change very quickly. Or if there are any concerns.
So with that, I think I might make a recommendation that says if anywhere it says metal detector or handheld wand would be good. That way it gives you some options. So that would be in the very last page as well. Paragraph that starts with visitors who use mobility devices, wheelchairs and such, pass through a metal detector or handheld wand. Without their mobility, the device will be asked to do so. If they're able to pass through the metal detector or a handheld wand, they will be subject to screening with, maybe subject to additional screening.
Okay, so we need to just table this until the next meeting and get it written out correctly.
Okay, we can.
Right, that makes more sense than chicken scratching our way through this.
So there's still a motion on the floor. Do we need to,
Remove the motion, withdraw.
can we withdraw?
Yes.
Oh, or we have to vote on
I-
the-
Person motion.
I'd be happy, but I just have one more question. How does that impact our next meeting? Just so everybody who's watching is clear with that, would we then continue with the meetings via Zoom only until we get a resolution on this? Or can they expect to be able to attend? It's a question,
Wow.
it's not, I'm not.
That's a great question.
Well, I think that if the police chief was here, it would be a lot safer.
Okay, so we'll make that happen.
Thank you.
And just to clarify that, may we just say police officer? That way we're
Yes,
flexible.
yes, correct.
Thank you.
And we don't need a resolution to have a police officer here.
No, we just
direct them.
Just
Yeah, tell them that this is part of your duty now. And you are going to remove your motion?
I will
Withdraw.
remove- I'm sorry, I will withdraw my motion, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so,
We will table this, we'll make some adjustments, we'll bring it back for your consideration.
all right. I have a motion to make to table the next discussion on a new metal detector. Till some other time in the future. Okay, consensus?
Aye.
Okay. We have no old business. The new business I just got rid of. Council concerns, Dana, you're up.
No, I just want to reiterate what Mr. Sweet said about working on the ridge path group. They're out there. I encourage everybody to go out there. It's normally pulling weeds. It's not my idea of a good time, but it actually turned out to be a good time. I found mussels that I didn't know I even had, so I'd just like to share that. I encourage everybody to go out to them if you can. I know I haven't been able to go to some of them due to scheduling, but if you can, go.
Awesome.
I wanted to bring this up just because it not only affects me, but I know it affects a lot of people in Gerhart and also the county. But we just got word this week that the only daycare facility in Gerhart is now closing at the end of the month. Newbies follows 2 closures in the last 3 months of childcare facilities for the residents of this county. So it's a crisis, countywide crisis, it's national crisis, I'm pretty sure. And I would just encourage anybody who knows anybody with a young child or a family that has issues with this to reach out and see how they can help. I think, and also reach out to your county commissioners and your city councilors and voice your opinion on it. It comes with a workforce housing shortage, there's also a childcare shortage. I think that's probably reflective of a lot of things. Can't have people, you don't have people working if you can't have somebody taking care of your child too, so keep that in mind. I think it's an issue of regulation, staffing, and previous funding from COVID that's kind of elevated this at kind of a key point right now. So yeah, I just wanted to mention it.
Thank you. That's not something I would have on my radar. Rita.
Well, I have coyotes living in my yard, more or less. They go into the brush. And I live on Summit, so I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that if they have small animals outside, they just might want to just be aware that there are coyotes up on Summit.
Well, you can send them down to F Street and 6th Street so they can eat all the rabbits.
That's another thing. I used to have a lot of rabbits in my yard. Now I don't have them anymore.
Yeah, there's a reason.
Yes, there is.
Yeah,
So just be aware.
Thank you. Brent?
Yes, well, tonight has kind of been law enforcement centered. I did want to mention, as has been previously mentioned, we're still shorthanded on our police department. We don't seem to be having a whole lot of recruitment success for an entry-level person coming in at a starting salary, being able to afford housing in Gerhardt or anywhere near Gerhardt. So maybe we need to start thinking about alternative strategies. One of them would be to, instead of looking for new recruits, looking for retirees who have already moved to Gerhardt to enjoy golf and fishing and hunting. And have their housing already sorted out and receiving a pension. And this isn't directed at you, Dana.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't qualify anymore. My neck looks like a broken slinky.
But I'm aware of at least about a half dozen retired law enforcement who live in Gerhardt and may be willing to serve as a reserve officer 1 or 2 days a week. And, you know, maybe they could fill the gap until an entry-level person is available. Another thought, we just got back from a little trip, and the community that we visited had non-sworn community safety officers who didn't carry guns, but they were available to do wellness checks, security checks, things that didn't really require a sworn officer to do. And maybe they could lighten the load of our two existing sworn officers. So just wanted to throw that out to be thinking about.
Yeah, a lot of departments do that, and it's a great way to supplement your force, but you also have to remember that there's a little bit of risk with that too. We'd have to look at how that would impact our insurance, you know, if somebody were to get injured, but they are a good resource. On my department, we used them for traffic control at accidents. We used them for traffic control at concerts, you know, and home checks on folks that can't leave readily, or empty home vacation checks. There are people that would like to do that. However, we would have to do a little bit of research into how that would, you know, what kind of liability we would incur.
Yes, indeed. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. I have no concerns. Motion?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
So second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good night, everybody.
Meeting over.
Good night.
Bye.